Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for checking out my videos and thanks for tuning in. I just want to say I appreciate you and thanks for the thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're checking the videos out on YouTube. And whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, always get that thumbs up. So anyway, I wanted to talk to you all today about the planets and how the planets impact our soul journey. But God had a different message that he wanted to deliver, and he put it in my heart through spirit to talk to you all about childhood origins of narcissism. Now, apparently there is somebody or someone's out there who need to hear this message because, again, this was not my direction this evening. But I'm going to be a good steward and deliver this message because somebody out there is dealing with this situation. It's pretty deep, and I'm going to go kind of fast because I want to keep the video short. But it's always so much information that I want to share and that needs to be shared. And so the videos end up being a little longer than I anticipate. So if I go too fast, feel free to contact me. Some of you reach out to me and you ask me questions and you have follow-up questions or comments and things like that. You message me, call me, it doesn't matter. Feel free, okay? I'm just opening up to everybody. If you have topics or something that you want some insight about or enlightenment about, feel free to ask me those questions as well. And I will give you the best response that I can, okay? All right, so back to what we're discussing tonight. Childhood origins of narcissism. And like I said, this is pretty intense, so listen with an open heart and an open mind. And I'm going to try to break this down in segments. So the childhood origin of narcissism impacts self-worth and self-value. So I'm going to talk about that. It also impacts the pathology of self. So I'm going to talk on that a little bit. And then how these beliefs of the parent develops and yields victim consciousness in the child. And then that child grows up as an adult feeling a certain way about himself or herself. And then I want to give you healing steps, okay, how to overcome this. All right. If y'all see smoke flowing by, there's some frankincense incense I got burning over there because, again, like I said, this energy is very strong tonight. I probably should open a window in my door over here. But again, I'm going to be a good steward and talk about this stuff. But I wanted to talk about the planets because my sister called today or texted me. It's like, hey, you see the moon? The moon's doing this, the moon's doing that. I'm like, oh, cool stuff because I love astrology. But somebody needs this message, and so we're going to dive down into it, all right? So let me get my specs on here so I can read my notes and see what Spirit gave me to share with you guys, all right? So, childhood origins of narcissism, the pathology of self. All right. So, pathology of self is the experiences of how one views him or herself in a pathological way. All right. It's usually on a scale between greatness and worthlessness, or grandiosity and defectiveness. Okay. So that's the pathological spectrum of self, where each of us views ourselves on some spectrum of that scale, okay? Whether you view yourself way up here and you're great, or way down here where you feel worthless. Now, this is why this is happening to you, okay? As most of us know, the sense of self develops in the first few years of life between the baby and the mother or the primary caretaker. But generally, it's always first with the mother because the baby has been in vitro for 8 to 9 months. And we all know in vitro, the baby hears the mom's voice, the blood exchange, all of that. There's no, how can I say this? There's no other, I mean, like I know men, you say, well, I was there for my child, okay? But that in vitro connection to the mother with that cord is like no other, okay? So the first connection a child has is with the mother, and the father second. Now it could be a close second if you've been there through it all, but it's still second, okay? With this connection, when something goes really wrong in the early stages of that attachment between mother and child, it sets the tone for that child. Okay, it just sets the tone. The attachment is hardwired. Okay, the baby not only internally is connected to the mother, but once the baby is born, the first thing the baby is going to see is the mother's face. Okay, so already that child is hardwired to the mother. All right, even at birth, a baby's brain is socially active. Everybody's brain is socially active. The brain is an organ, but it is the only organ in the human body that needs spontaneity. Okay? The brain and self-development interact with each other. If you studied like orphans and you studied children who don't have connections or physical contact with another, they are very despondent. Okay, that's an example of how the brain did not receive the spontaneity, touch, talk, hear. Okay, so all the organs in our body, the brain, the heart, the lungs, all, pancreas, all that, everything that's an organ, intestines, blah, blah. The brain is the only one that needs spontaneity. It needs interaction, okay? Good parenting generally develops some sense of awe with the child. You see the child, see it grow, you loving it, you set those boundaries with the child. You give the child good limitations. The child grows up healthy, nurtured, well-rounded. It has good loving conditions in the environment. Okay, it's being taught. It's being spoken to kindly with loving words, but it's disciplined when it needs to be. Okay, the child is experiencing good parenting. It's getting good vibrations from the parent. The parent is mirroring back to the child, good behavior. It's rewarding the child with good behavior. Okay. But when those interactions are violated, okay, when there is a great violation in the operational parenting mode, this is where things go really wrong. And the child starts to develop a false sense of self. Okay? Generally, narcissistic parents will create a narcissistic child. Children are born into this world innocent, other than their DNA structure. Okay? Everything else is environmental. All right. there are three major ways that a child's natural self-expression is stifled in exchange for what the parent demands, or what the, or the wants of the child. So I'm gonna go down three major things that go wrong with this development of a child. Number one, the child is repeatedly put down in the expression of themselves, their feelings or emotions. If they manifest a weakness or vulnerability, it's crushed, humiliated, invalidated, or ignored. I should say the child, because I said it, but the child is who I'm talking about. Okay, the child is not given those accurate mirroring or echoing interactions, from the parent that help develop their internal mental state. All right. The child is given a message that what you think or what you feel, your vulnerabilities, okay, that child's vulnerabilities are unimportant. It distresses the parent or makes the parent feel anxious or upset. And they don't want the child to express these things, okay? Because the child is a product of the parent's consumption. All right? So the spontaneous self-expression of the child is ignored because the parent doesn't want it to reflect what they are. Okay? That is when the child is repeatedly put down. The second thing is, number two, is the child is idolized excessively. This is where you see parents overpraising or excessively praising the child. They put the child on a pedestal for specific attributes that provides the parent with a certain self-esteem. Okay? It gives the parent a certain gratification. So like if a child is really good at music, y'all have seen these kind of parents, a child, is really good at music or sports, or they have some physical attractiveness, they're really pretty kids, and that parent just overly idolize this child. It's because the parent sees the child as an extension of themselves. All right? The characteristics of the child are not so great in the parent's eyes when the child shows any vulnerability or signs of weakness. These are those parents, the child ain't supposed to have no weaknesses. How dare you, right? If the child has tears, or if they fail at something, like the child's crying, or, they fail at something, they are dealt with very harshly. They are humiliated and put down or ignored again by the parent, okay? The humiliation, the rejection, or the excessive praise, admiration, the child learns to be a false self to get the affection of the parent, right? So the child wants to please the parent. So they'll do anything to get that parent's attention, or try to do anything. So the child learns to be a false self. Okay, they learn to be the child that the parent wants versus who they really are. So the child manifests these qualities that make the parent feel good in order to get the love from the parent. So the child disconnects himself or herself from those parts of themselves because they learn to ignore who they really are and the feelings that they really have about themselves because they don't want to be humiliated. They don't want to be put down. They want to please the parent. All right? When that particular child, again, shows vulnerability, sadness, or even tenderness, all right? Even if that child becomes kind or shows or displays kindness or tenderness to another person, these get in the way of the narcissistic parent, those characteristics, all right? They don't provide the parent with gratification. The parent's not looking for that stuff. The parent's looking for some other things. So the child learns to disavow, disconnect those parts of himself, like I said. And the parent gives the message that those parts of the child are weak. All right? So all the kindness that the child is exuding, this narcissistic parent is going to make that child believe these are bad things and this is of a weak person. All right? This is what weak people do. You don't do that. Okay? So anyway, the parent doesn't want those parts because it makes the parent feel weak. All right? Like I said, this stuff bothers me. This is very hard for me to do. This stuff is, ugh. Anyway, the parent doesn't mirror back to the child properly, or echo back to the child properly. Why can't I say that word tonight? Because it makes the parent uncomfortable about themselves. All right? So again, the child becomes attached to a false sense of self. Those parts are dismissed and greatly needed in a healthy human development. So the child is not getting it, all right? He's not getting those healthy human developmental interactions. All right, let's move on. The third one, role reversal. This is when the parent uses the child as a counselor to comfort the parent. If the child doesn't comply with the parent may withdraw from the child, or the parent may even have a tantrum. But again, the parent will humiliate and reject the child. So the child becomes attuned to what the parent wants. Okay? And the child is used to meet the parent's own need. So the disorder of self, with the roots in childhood, is why some people develop into adult narcissists. Okay? Again, in these early stages of childhood development, when these three major things go, or I should say, are taking place, it causes the roots of that childhood, that child, in their childhood to be incredibly wrong. It just goes wrong. It just goes sideways. And you end up with an adult who develops self-worth and self-value issues. Either they devalue themselves, they belittle themselves, or their self-value is just destroyed. Okay? And again, how they view themselves when they're feeling this way is the pathology of self. It's how they view or experience themselves in a pathological way. So again, it's that spectrum. So if you have a child that's gone through these things and now they are an adult, that adult is going to see themselves as really, really great on some spectrum to worthlessness. They're not worthy. All right. And they develop based on the parents' beliefs that were taught to the child. That child develops the victim consciousness. So now you're dealing with an adult who has victim consciousness based on what happened to them as a child. And all the child ever wanted was to be accepted and loved, but they didn't receive it. And generally, this happens to the child because the parent or parents had their own hole or void in their own heart. Okay? So you're dealing with, that's why they said a narcissistic parent will raise or create a narcissistic child, because the parent has these same voids and they're trying to fill these voids with the child. Okay? And they're robbing the child of their own self-identity. And then that child grows up not even knowing who the heck he or she is. All they know is the false self that they had to live and endure to please this parent. Then they come into the adult world trying to have relationships. Okay? So when they encounter their soulmates, twin flames, I made that video the other day, these connections can go really, really wrong. They will fail and be very toxic because that child who is now an adult is still carrying the wounds of wanting to be accepted. So it's kind of like when you hear about people looking for love in all the wrong places because they don't know who they are. A healing process has to occur. If you have two of these people who are dating or, get married or what have you, those relationships have been really, really tough. Generally, what'll happen is one person is going to go through the healing process at a different rate than the other person. And I pray they go through a healing process. One is going to prove oneself and elevate beyond the other. And again, when that starts happening, it's going to clash because they're not equally yoked. All right, so let me go through some of the healing steps because, like I said, that energy, and as a parent, I couldn't. It's hard to even know people go through this. And I know some people. I have a friend, and I just hope he gets his healing. That's all I can say. So let's talk about the healing. You have to balance the energies and your emotions. There's a video I made about balancing the left brain and the right brain. I think I made that video on New Year's Day. I think it's titled, "What Does 2019 Mean?" Check that video out because it's about balancing the left brain and the right brain. Your left brain is logic and your right brain is creativity. And when the left brain is overactive, the left brain tells the right brain what to do. Okay? If you need to heal, you have to find balance between the two hemispheres of the brain because every action is preceded by a thought. We think things first and then we act out. Okay? So if your thinking is trapped in narcissism, you're going to behave like a narcissist. You have to heal. You have to get the balance between these energies and emotions. Okay? That's the first thing. You have to work on you first. You cannot heal another person. You got to heal yourself first. Try to develop a new belief system different than the parent or caretaker who put you in this state in the first place. Sometimes that stuff goes deep to the bone because it's all a person knows is what they were taught. But what they were taught has not served them well in life. And therefore, they have to find what works for them in a positive, healthy, nurturing way. And that can be hard sometimes. Some people don't know where to start, okay? I will say to you that you were created to be a co-creator of this world, this earth. You were created to succeed, all right? You have a life purpose. We all do. Everybody has a life purpose. But to get to your life purpose, you have to do your healing. And your healing will move you to your life purpose. All right? Another thing you have to do is release the sense of the need to be accepted. You don't need people to validate you. Okay? If you don't change the energy of needing to be accepted by someone, the universal law of attraction, y'all hear me say this all the time, you are going to give off the vibrations of I am not enough. That is what you're giving off when, you don't feel self-love, you don't feel self-worth or self-value. So you're giving off this energy of I am not enough. And you are going to attract a person who is going to ride that same frequency that you are not enough, and they are going to come into your life and they're going to hold you down in that low, dark vibration. All right. So you want to put out the energy that you accept yourself, that you love yourself. Okay. You're going to have to learn how to love yourself first. Okay. And that you validate your own self. Self-love. The greatest, what is that song Whitney used to sing? The greatest love of all. And I think Sammy Davis Jr. actually wrote it, and sung it first. Y'all can correct me on that. I don't know. But anyway, the greatest love of all is you. Now, I'm not talking about a selfish love and an arrogant love and an egotistical love. I'm talking about loving yourself in a healthy, positive way, that you exude that same positive, nurturing, loving, self-caring energy to others, that you care about your fellow man, that you care about humanity, that you care about those less fortunate than you are, that you help and give back to society. All right? You have to establish a positive relationship with your own soul. Remember, this is a soul journey. First and foremost, your soul is just encompassed in this physical body. So what you do with your soul is important. All right? Whether you had a rough start in life or not by your parents, okay? You will be victorious. All right? Because God put you here to be a creator of this world. He did not put you here to be a victim. All right? Once you balance your energies and your emotions, your life will become balanced. And you will discover your life's purpose. And once you get you straight, then you can help your family, you can help your neighbors, your friends, your extended families. You can help others. All right? So I'm going to stop it right there. We're almost at 30 minutes. But I pray for all of those who needed to hear this message. Keep pushing forward. All right? God bless. Take care, everyone. Good night.